I am cindyann, and I help successful divorced women to attract a healthy relationship where they feel deeply secure and fulfilled without the fear of making a mistake again or ending up alone.
I'm Abby. I'm a busy mom, and I help high achieving single women overcome their fear of getting taken advantage of, stop pushing men away, and invite the secure and loving relationship of their own dreams.
I'm Emma, and at 46, I attracted my first healthy relationship after overcoming my chronic people pleasing. I now help successful single women to find the loving and committed relationship they have always desired.
Join us for coffee and coaching conversations, where three experienced coaches answer your love and dating questions. See you there. Welcome to Coffee and Coaching Conversations, Love and Dating, the podcast where love, coaching, and personal growth intertwine to empower you on your relationship journey. I'm Abby in Ohio, and with me are cindyann in Seattle and Emma in Bath in the UK. So she's on the road right now in a new location or a different one. And we are so excited to share today's topic with you. So, for today, we are talking about how to be responsive to a man in a way that inspires his masculine energy to come toward you. So, what's that mean? It basically is if anybody's been in the world or listened to a few podcasts, I know a lot of our listeners have listened to us for a while, or maybe they have heard a little bit about masculine and feminine energy. Sometimes people get confused about what it really means to receive from a man or what it really means to lean back, and they'll say, I'll give a quick example just to give you an idea if you're listening in and you're not sure what this means. I had a client not too long ago talk to me about going on some first dates, and she described a date that didn't go so well. And she said, oh my gosh, I was on this date and I didn't do anything. I leaned back. I barely said anything. I didn't, I just let him lead the conversation. And this guy didn't do enough. He didn't do all the things that I wanted him to do. I expected him to just step in and be a man. And then she proceeded to get upset. So she was a client who oftentimes like we'll work with women who are really themselves high powered and go-getters, and she was somebody who was used to taking charge, and she got really upset with this guy and said, I just had to tell him, I went in and just told him that he needed to pay, and he needed to step up, and he needed to do this and that, open doors for me, and like all kinds of things like that. And so she sort of went to that, like telling the guy that he should be more masculine and he wasn't being masculine enough. And she basically sort of nixed this guy who she hadn't really had a chance to get to know, because in her mind, she was really stepping in. I was stepping in my feminine energy and I wasn't doing anything, and I expected him to just fill the space. And while I think the idea is good. I mean, you're kind of going into the right step if you're an overdoer, which many of us are. I know I can personally relate to that, and so many of our listeners can if they're here, if they're doing this work. But we have to understand that there's a difference there. And what do we mean when we say being receptive or responsive to a man in a way that actually inspires him to step into his masculine energy and want to really show us who he is? Like, what does that look like as opposed to just doing nothing? So that is our topic. And I want to, oh, cindyann, I was going to,
No,
yeah, to see what
you
you say about that.
okay?
Yeah.
Before we got on, we before we started recording, Abby said something that I thought was just like so perfect. And that was, you know, any way that we can really describe to our listeners to say what it truly means to lean back. So again, we know because we were all where you were before we now all have our loving partners. But we really did have to go on dates and sit in the chair and feel the bottom of the chair and the back of the chair. We really did have to put our hands in our lap intentionally to say, like, I'm here, I'm listening to you. I'm not going to run this like a meeting. I'm not going to interview you. I am going to be here in my seat and just receive you for what it is that you're willing to say to me. I'm not going to ask a ton of questions about you, this beautiful man across me that I know I want to go on another date with. But what I am going to do is let you try to tell me, because men learn a lot about you in silence. So when you're silent, not that you're sitting there staring at each other at Starbucks in your date, but just that you're silent and you're not over dominating, and you're just, it's okay if there's a minute or two that goes by where no one's talking. Because if anything, guess what? That guy is getting more of you than if you were to tell him everything about your life. But if he can receive you in your quiet, then he's receiving like a part of you that you can't describe.
Yeah, it's that energetic. I love that you said that because
Yes.
so sensitive to energy in ways that no words could. I mean, we could say whatever we want, and what they're really like listening to or what they're really noticing is this energy and what it feels like to be with us. And so if
Uh-huh.
we can step back and we can get active in our reception of the man, then we're
Yes.
same wavelength with this new person. Like you step
Mm-hmm.
back, you listen, and you're actively receiving what he's saying. So it's one thing, like you just said, cindyann, to start filling the space with like things, and getting women get so formulaic when they're not sure, and this is really new for them, and they're just like, I'm going to say it this way, I'm going to lean back like this, and I'm going to wait for him to say. But you're leaning back so that you can receive, not just leaning back to lean back to get him to do something. You're leaning back so you can get to know who he is. Like, you step back, you give some space, you hear what he has to say, and you respond with curiosity, as
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or whatever emotion comes up. Like, you give your emotions some time to really see him and to really hear him
Mm-hmm.
when you take some time to lean back. So the magic happens when you lean back and you're open to being able to really perceive this man for who he's presenting himself to be, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
I,
that, I
I
mean, not,
also
yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I think that also leads to a deeper connection, because if you are actively listening, I'm sure we've all been on courses at work about active listening. You're not jumping in immediately. So often, and I observe this with people all the time, and not just on dates, where it's people having not it's the monologues being talked out loud. It's not them actually conversing properly, because all they're doing is somebody says something and they immediately go, oh, I know that, I've got a story related to that, or this happened to me, or something's, and but if you just step back and just listen properly, it's not just about the words. What are they trying to convey to you? What are the emotions? What are the stories? What are the pictures that they're trying to tell you? And try and resist that urge to immediately respond. Doesn't necessarily have to lead to silence. It might lead to silence, doesn't have to. But just check in with yourself. Are you just kind of jumping in because you're nervous? Are you jumping in because you just want to respond? You're not actually listening to what they're really trying to tell you. Because, as you said, Abby, people do get nervous. They do want to respond immediately. But I think all relationships, not just in dating, are deeper and have better quality to them if you do just take a moment and don't immediately respond with something, because then it's a whole different ballgame about what you're actually communicating. So I think that's really important. It leads to deeper connections, and it helps people feel heard.
Yes.
Everybody feels heard if they, if you are taking that time and, as you say, responding with curiosity. But as we've talked about in another session, not continually asking questions so that they're not asking about you, and isn't just, all about you trying to avoid being telling your stories, and them learning about you. So I think that's a really important point. And then another way,
Yeah,
sorry,
please, Emma, go. No, you go.
and then another sort of example of kind of not leaning back, and I can relate to this myself. So I live in London. I'm in Bath today, but I live in London, and as you know, there are so many different things to do, and I love organising different activities with friends, with family, for dates, all that kind of stuff. Absolutely love it. So doing that is not a chore, it's a pleasure, finding all the slightly unusual things to do, and new experiences and all of that. So one thing I used to do was offer way too early to do all of those kinds of things. It's like, oh, I can organize this, I can organize that. Oh, this would be really exciting. Why don't we do this? And it's like, this is a great thing in my mind, and I learned. So one of the and like, that a lot of women will be like, well, what's the problem? I don't get it. What's the problem? So it's like having to learn to kind of, make suggestions about possible things that you could do together that would be really fun, rather than just like taking over and saying, right, well, I'll organize it because I know I'm on this mailing list and I've been then done this before, or my friend told me about the other. Is I think, that's definitely something I had to learn.
Absolutely. Yes. Oh my gosh, I've so been that woman. I can completely agree because I love things like that. And somehow I always know, like, fun events are coming up, something's, all fun little things that are happening
Yes.
now. And I'm typically the one, I'll just be like sending links because I know the weekend's coming up and all this stuff. And the guy just has to just sort of show up, which is totally robbing this man of an opportunity to do something that he wants to do, which is
Yeah.
to win you over, to impress you, to do something for you. And it really did. There was a point where I had to very consciously say, I'm not going to offer, I'm not going to offer anything. However, what I will offer is the expression that I want to see him. So he'll say, "Oh, I'd love to see you again." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm so excited about the weekend. I can't wait to see you." But that's it. I don't offer anything about what we might be able to do. And if the guy, my upcoming date, if he says something like, so he gets that opportunity to say, "Well, what are you feeling? What do you like to do?" And that's wonderful. So if a man asks a woman to offer something, it is okay, ladies out there listening. It is okay to say, "Oh, it would feel so good. I'm actually kind of feeling like getting outside," or "I would really love, oh my gosh, it would just feel nice to hear some music this weekend. Like live music sounds nice." So that's still, that's okay. It's, it's okay to have thoughts, and men like that, especially if you just asked. But that still gives them an opportunity to look it up or do some research. And so, I've had men kind of come up with something and they'll like go spend some time and get back to me in a few hours or whatever. And I get a chance to say, "Oh, that sounds so great." And there have been times when I've kind of done things knowing that there was something better that I could, or something that I really wanted. but I did it and actually found out that I enjoyed it, you know?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
if it
Mhm.
wouldn't have been my choice or my pick because this is what I'm so good at. And so that's something that we can learn as women to, really let that man have that space to do the thing and to make the thing and feel really good about buying the tickets. And those were great seats. They turned out great and this and that. And you could just get a chance to appreciate and receive what he did for you. So, yes, I completely agree with that experience, Emma, 100%. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think for women, especially like in my age bracket, where we have been divorced for years. Before being with my partner, I was pretty much separated and or divorced for 10 years. So by that time, and at that point, I had a 10-year-old, or she was 11 then. And I would then was doing the job of both when when the kids, when they were with me, because they lived a lot of the time with me, I was doing all of the mom job and the dad job and the cleaning and the organizing and the cooking and the everything. So, what I wanted to bring into this piece was that we have a tendency to overfunction because that's what we have to do as moms and divorcees, and then take on the whole projects, everybody's projects. They all become your projects to keep the household moving. So my big piece when I was learning how to literally when I was learning how to date in my 50s, I had to really learn this piece of go on a date, sit back, relax, enjoy the conversation and enjoy what he has to offer. Enjoy if I was to talk about myself, because that's also super important to talk about yourself and not just be asking him a million questions. But then when talking about yourself, hopefully then what you're doing too is leaning back and talking a little bit more about yourself as opposed to asking him questions and asking him questions and interviewing him. And that, yeah, I think there's a fine line there to be
Yeah.
learned with
Yeah.
more dates.
Getting into your own experience as opposed to
Mm-hmm.
really feeling that. I love that. Because even just like your
Mm-hmm.
energy, I know some people might be listening as opposed to watching, but that sense of really stepping back and relaxing. And I can relate
Mm-hmm.
as a mom, you know, so
Yes.
that we get how that energy shifts. Like have,
Mm-hmm.
this is for the moms or even women who just tend to have like really busy lives. Like let that be your opportunity to really just sit back and relax. And men, 9 times out of 10, totally notice. They can actually see the energy shift. I've even had men actually comment before when they're just like, "Oh my gosh, you just relaxed. What does that mean? I just saw you like you just took the biggest stop. What is that?" And they start questioning what's going on with you or what you're experiencing. So, yeah.
And that's so true because it's just that leading back. And truly, there was a love coach in my past who had said, take a breath,
Mhm.
breathe in and breathe out, and be in the moment. And you're not doing the breath for him, you're doing it for yourself to readjust, to figure out who you are and what you are, even in that moment at Starbucks.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter how nervous you are, um, it's important to try and be really present because it's going to be a
Yeah.
much nicer experience for you and for him.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that can be hard if, you've had problems getting out there and, it's been a long time since you've got out there or, any of those things. But it's so
Mm-hmm.
important to try really hard to be in the moment and do whatever you need to do to do that, whether it is taking the breath, whether it's like, giving yourself a moment to kind of, as you say, cindyann, feel the chair, feel your feet on the ground, whatever it is. If you need to
Mm-hmm.
kind of have a moment, pop to the bathroom or whatever it is, just to kind of, okay, I can do this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we have covered a lot of ground. So, some top tips for you, the lovely people that are listening. So, it's about not just telling the guy he needs to be in his masculine and that he needs to do everything. But equally, it doesn't mean that you do nothing either. You know, you need to kind of respond, but you do that from kind of that place of receiving and relaxation and being present. The power of silence, you know, that's very, very powerful. So, you know, if you need that, think about the energetics. So, you know, those messages that you are sending by how you are being, what your body language is saying. Don't take over and organize everything. Very important. Doesn't matter how many contacts you have, you know, let him make the decisions. You can give him some guidance, and if he asks you, certainly go back with useful information, but let him lead. And if you're used to over functioning, which I think so many women are, you know, remember that this is not the place for that. So kind of try and enjoy being the fact that you are receiving, and relax. This is meant to be fun, so try and enjoy it. So that was a long recap, but hopefully there are some and takeaways there for you. And if you would like to find out about any breakthroughs from your specific barriers and experiences, then we would absolutely love to talk to you. So click on our links that are in the bios, and we will have a free breakthrough session with you and hopefully help you to have a long-term loving relationship that you have always desired. And we will see you in the next episode.